Now this video is a bit of a departure for me. I may end up being a laughingstock as a result of it, but I don't mind, because what I want to do is I want to share with you my process for trying to understand what's happening in a third-party service to start to use that information within the Power Platform in Microsoft. And I'm going to use AI to be my translator, my bridge between third-party and Microsoft services to see how I get on. So what we have with the Power Platform is a whole bunch of options that we can choose from, which are under this connections menu item on the left hand side here, but they allow us to connect to different services in Microsoft 365, and you can hook Power Apps to them, you can hook Power Automate flows to them. They just simply allow you to either communicate, pass information, retrieve information, or work with a service that sits either within the Microsoft 365 ecosystem or outside it even. And you can add a lot of these into your apps to give them more features, more functionality as you go. And as you explore, you'll find dozens and dozens that are super useful. So for example, I can use this one to go and get weather from the MSM weather service. But there's a lot of circumstances where you'll either find that one that's been provided for you is not adequate, or it's not potentially cost effective, or even it's not doing the job that you want it to do. And it's there that I'm going to reach into with this video and start to explore how AI can help us to make the process of bridging to other third-party services that little bit easier. And that's my goal in this video, is to show you, to demonstrate really me going through that process so you can see how it feels to me, and I'll try and be as honest as I can, and then you can decide whether that's something that you're prepared to embark upon. I will say, if you do this, it's going to open up a whole world of opportunities for the Power Platform for you that you may not have recognised were there before. The start point for all of this will be what's called custom connectors. If you don't see that, what you need to do is go into this menu here. If you don't see it here, you can do Discover All, and this menu changes quite a bit, but what you're looking for is data connections. So these are the standard connections that you get out of the box with Microsoft. Some you pay for, some you don't. This is the world that you're going to dip into, where you'll create your own connection to a third-party service. If you want to just pin it to your sidebar like I have, you just click there. But what it looks like is this. You'll see any connections that you set up before on this screen. But what we're going to do is we're going to go and set up a brand new custom connector. And on this video, we'll just choose a new service that we're going to connect to, and I'll show you that process. The idea of then using that connection in your Power Apps or your Power Automate flow, I'll save for another video, and I'll actually post a video for you which is a good example of where you might go and use one of these custom connectors. And that video is relating to this particular Nominatim map connector, which is a free, open source, really easy to use way of getting address information back. So when you go to create a custom connector, you'll create it from blank, and let's just give this a test name and continue. What you'll be faced with is screens like this, where you've got a general screen where you give some names, you've got security, some definition, you've got two areas here, AI plugin, which is a new element of this screen, a code view, and then testing. If you're coming into this for the first time, it can be a little bit overwhelming. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go and get AI to help me fill in these boxes. To use AI, there's two features that I think I'm going to need to use, and I've done this in the past and it works really well. But the first is to be able to take screens and images and use those in my conversation with AI. The second is to be able to read web pages. To start us off, I'm just going to save you a little bit of time. I've settled on ChatGPT. We have a paid option here, but the older models work just as well, to be honest. So if you're on a free plan, give that a go. If it doesn't work for you, go and try Copilot. But I'm going to bias towards this one just because I know it works for me. Main reason is I know I can cut and paste, so I can do a snapshot and pop it in. Typically, you've got a use case. I'm just going to pick one out of thin air here, and I'm going to use the maps use case because that ties into another video where I show you how to implement the actual custom connector that we create. But I'll just stick with the maps one. Typically, I'll go and research this. I'll go and Google it and say, what free mapping APIs are there out there? What free mapping services? But I'm going to stick and actually try and use ChatGPT to answer that question first and foremost. So that's my question. You can insert your own use case here, but it's going to give me, so Nominatim, it's given me top there. Whether that's, I don't know why it keeps coming up, but it keeps coming up, and I've used it in the other video, so I might go with that actually. You've got Google Maps, which you'd expect, geocode XYZ. So when they say tier, what that generally means is I've got an extra step of a subscription, and for this video I want to avoid that to make it nice and quick. So as you can see, loads of opportunities there if you don't mind signing up to some service, but you get free calls into an API. But because this one here doesn't need a license, doesn't need any sign-in, it's super simple to just demonstrate. I am going to stick with this one, and it, like I say, it does tie into the other video. So I'll stick with this one. I'm just going to go and type it into my search engine just because that link doesn't work. Like I say, this is all kind of raw. It's all off the cuff. There's nominatim. Nominate him. You say tomato, I say tomato. I don't know. Right, okay, so he used the use for occasional use. I don't want to install my own. Use the API. API documentation. This is typically a flow that you'll go through when you find a third-party service and you want to use it. You'll go through some documentation. Sometimes it's dead easy. This is actually quite nicely laid out. But here's what I want. I want to reverse what's called lookup to give some information, longitude and latitude, and get data back. And you'll start then to have a little scroll down the page and you go, all right, well, it doesn't seem too difficult. But there's a lot of information on this page. So the next thing I'm going to get AI to do for me is to just digest this. So I'm going to copy that. I'm going to go and pop it into here. Now, it's not directly reading the website in that tab. What it's doing is reading what it knows about that website from previous crawls. But the good thing is I can see there it's understood that website, that web page, if you like. But what I've done there, and I'll talk about my own model for prompting in a moment, but we've primed the AI. So what I believe I've done now is I've put me and AI onto the same page. So we're talking about the same thing now for any future conversations. So I've talked about this before. I've generated my own little model because my brain's simple. It works in a few steps to allow me to prompt. It's called Clear. So the C is context. That's what we'll start with, where we set the framework for the conversations we're about to have. I've already put us on the same page, so we know we're in the same kind of ballpark talking about a particular thing. But I'm now going to say I want to be able to go through a form on a custom connector. I'm up to this stage, and I want you to guide me step by step through what I should put into all of the boxes. But as I do it as well, I'm going to provide information in image form to AI to help me get through this process. So let's go and give it a go. Now I've just fast forwarded through some typing there. Let's just break this down a little bit so I can talk through that clear process that I'm using. So I've given a bit of context here. That's what this is. I've said go and read the page. That's our shared context. But this is specifically what I'm going to do. I'm going to ask for advice on how to implement the call into a custom connector in a Power Platform. Then I call it layout. There's probably a better term for this, but clear works for me. I can remember it. I'm laying out really clearly what I want the AI support to offer me. So take me through each step of the process, referring to a screenshot that I'm going to give you, and use the information you already have. Don't worry about typos, it can get past those. Share with me what to enter into each box. So that's me kind of saying, this is me laying out my request in more detail. You can add examples in now. That's the E of clear, where you can give it some screenshots and this is what I would expect. That might be helpful, but I'm going to skip that and I'm going to get into the ask me any questions. That's the A of clear. And then we'll go into a retry, revise process. That's the R of clear. So first of all, let's just see if it understands us. This is really me, again, kind of going into that A and that R of clear, where I'm asking it to ask me the questions, but I'm also refining and revising our understanding, our shared common goal. So it's now said, please give me the first screenshot. All right, let's do that. And this is what I like about ChatGPT. I've just done a quick screenshot there, cut and paste, and there you go. So it can now technically, it's reading all that text, but it can see what I'm seeing. What I'm going to try and do is put this side by side so we can see it a bit more easily. Okay, there we go. We can see this on screen now. So the connector name, we've done that step. I'm not bothered about the icon. I quite like the fact that I've got it side by side here. I can kind of compare and contrast. Don't worry about the background color description. Okay, let's just copy its description just because it's given me one. It's quite nice. Leave the scheme as HTTPS. The host, it's saying enter that. And we can leave the base URL as /. Okay. So it's Recognizes we need to go to security settings. No authentication, that's fine. Now, if you're familiar with APIs, this might be quite easy, but if you're going into this world for the first time, it might feel a bit daunting, and it's that I really want to speak to show how we can get that support if we don't have someone next to us who's got experience. But as I'll show you in a minute, you still need to tread a little bit carefully. So now we're going to go into definition. This is where typically most people will look at it and go, oh, gulp, not quite sure what to do. Okay. So it's being really clear. So it's saying actions, click new action and give it something like, now there's quite a lot in here, so I'll follow what I can follow, but I'm going to deliberately play a little bit dumb when I get down to requests. So description, okay, that's nice and easy. Summary, again, nice and easy. Let's copy paste that. Operation ID, okay, let's call it reverse geocode. I don't know if you've ever implemented a custom connector or even a connector, but what you do in Power Apps, for example, is you add the connector as a data source and then you can refer to it by a name, like the connector might be nominatim, and then you enumerate into that connector with a dot, and you end up seeing this as the text for the action you're about to perform. That's what we're doing there, the operation ID. Okay, so we've done that, nothing about visibility, and we're into a request. Now, what I'm seeing in request is different to what it's describing there. So this is where I'm going to lean again into that picture and go into the asking questions and review and revise process. So I'm going to paste an image in of really this section here and ask a question. So you can see there, I've given it some feedback. Again, ignore my typing. I do apologise. I've got slightly slow fingers today. Okay, so here's how we proceed. For the request section, you need to manually define the parameters. So we click on new parameter. So that's interesting. There is no button that says new parameter. I'm going to tell it that. Okay, so now we seem to be back on the same page. Click import from sample. In the verb, choose get. That's the verb that we use for this, as it says there, retrieving data. For the URL, enter this. So I'm starting to understand what I'm seeing there. I'm actually seeing 3 things that it's going to do. Well, 4. It's going to go to what's called the reverse endpoint for the API, and it's going to pass 3 parameters, a latitude, a longitude, and JSON. Okay, fantastic. Let's pop that in and import it. So what that's done is it's taken that URL and it's understood that that URL expects 3 parameters. Fantastic. Now we're in business. So a really important process there not to underestimate is tell AI when it's got it wrong. Tell the large language model that's not right and give it what you're actually seeing. I could have taken a picture equally, but I just felt that that was nice and easy to say. Okay, so now we're down to the response. Click on add a default response. Again, yeah, okay, I could. I don't feel that's quite right. So I'm just going to send in a picture at this point because my spidey sense is saying I've already kind of got some things there. Are you overlooking something? Okay, so click on the default button to edit it. Add a sample response. You can grab it from here. So this is where you can sometimes get a bit lost. I've gone to the page. Can I find the sample response? I could probably search for it. I want AI to really help me here. Okay, fantastic. So again, it's thinking about how you'd want a helper to help you. You don't want to help, well, you do want a helper to say, go look in the documentation. But equally, you might want to go, well, yeah, I can't really find it. So give me an example. And it's given me a pretty good example here, I believe. So let's copy that in and let's look at the instructions. Add a sample response. Okay, so it's saying click on default. I'm gonna play dumb actually. Let's try and see what I should do. Right, okay, so that's clarified for me. Again, just being really kind of pedantic, I guess. That's an important step, is be really specific. So there we go. So we had the get method. Paste it into the body section. Let's do that. Paste it into the body and click import. There we go. So now I've got a default response, which is going to give me back all this lovely data that I can use. That validation section has succeeded. Okay, so we're going to go to another tab. So go to the test tab is what it's saying. Okay, let's just... Now I know from using this really that what I could do is step through it, but I'm just going to... Again, let me just play dumb. So I'm playing as if I've never used this before, and I'm copying and pasting images. I guess for me that's kind of the big learning point, is don't be afraid to use images. Okay, so click Create Connector. Thank you. So what that's going to do is create a template connector for me. It's going to be called Test. Not the best name in the world. Probably could have called it something else. But once that's done, then I'm going to start to be able to see whether it's done the correct job, whether that's worked. Of course, if you're super familiar with the way that APIs and this interface works, the more you use it, the more you'll get used to what data to pull out of the pages where the developers describe their APIs. But if, like I say again, I keep iterating it, if you're relatively new, this is just going to help you bridge that gap. I mean, I'm scrolling down here and I go a bit word blind if I'm completely honest with you, and I love the in-context guidance that I'm getting. Okay, so apparently I have created a connector. Again, I'm going to play really dumb here. So I'm on that screen, I describe what I see. How do I test this? It's time to test it. Okay, so that's saying I could test it. Is there a quicker way? I guess this is where I'm crossing the boundary a little bit, knowing that there is a quicker way, but I want it to kind of focus in and tell me, just so you have seen the two options that you've got. Yes, you can now go and use the test connector in your Power App, like I've done in that video, but let's go to the test tab. Okay, here we go. So I am crossing over into teaching a little bit because I know about this tab here. So we've got an option to test that connector. So this is just a simulation really. It doesn't do anything other than create a test example for me to go and use. So there it is, the test connector has been created. I can now go and use it. It's a bit of an odd way that it takes you out into this screen again, but if I go back to my custom connections, now that's in place, I can go into that test. Let's just quickly click edit, go right to the very end, test, and I can use that connection that I've just created. Now here it's going to ask me for longitude and latitude. I've got some example data over here. I've got some longitude and format is JSON. Okay. All I'm doing now is proving to see whether this works. So let's have a look. So status 200 means it's been a success. And if I look at the body, I've got some, it's number 10 Downing Street it's given me. Another thing you can do is, I'm just going to copy that and I'm going to say, what does this JSON tell me? What's it showing? If you ever get a big set of JSON in a body or some text in a body, this is quite handy to try. So just paste it into ChatGPT and ask it, or paste it into Copilot, ask it what, just kind of summarize it. Now you and I can see that plain English, but having it described is quite nice. So JSON represents the reverse geocoding from that API for these longitude and latitude, which is 10 Downing Street, London. Okay, it's given a unique place ID and loads of other information there. So I'm pretty happy that what I've been able to do there is not go through all this documentation here necessarily, although it has got some examples, just found those. A lot of them are quite good at this, some are quite bad, but the process should stand you in good stead of being able to fill in one of these forms, create a custom connector, and then use that video I've posted over in the comments of this particular video to go and implement it into your Power App. So I hope that idea of structure, and specifically the kind of asking questions and refinement using images and what you see on screen, and also probably that technique which I subconsciously do of having things side by side, hope that helps you in your journey trying to decipher stuff that you might find on the web that you want to implement into the Power Platform, but you need a bit of help bridging the understanding. Do like and subscribe if you enjoy these videos. I'll keep doing more around AI topics, but also keep an eye out for my Power Platform videos. See you next time.